Unit 2 is all about transformations. So we're going to talk about some definitions first, and then we'll talk about our first transformation, which is a translation. So we have a transformation. Moves or changes a figure to produce a new figure. Now the figure before this transformation is called the pre-image. And after we do the transformation, it is called the image. So pre-image is pre-transformation or before the transformation, and the image is after it. Now, if the original point is called P, the new point is called P prime. That's how we pronounce it, that's how we say it, and we write it as P with this little mark up here for prime. So when we transform some of these figures, some of these points, to differentiate between the pre-image and the image, we have this prime notation here. So like I said, the first one we're going to talk about is called a translation. And a translation moves every point in a figure in the same direction and in the same distance. Think about sliding a figure. So if I'm taking my desk and I'm sliding it from one side of the room to the other, that is a translation. So let's look at this example and explore a little bit. So if we have from A to A prime, and we just look at how far we go, we're going left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we went left 8 and up 2. Now let's say we have another point, 2 comma negative 2. We label that point B. Where would B prime be? So let's do the same thing. We're going to go left 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and up 2. So the coordinates of this point would be negative 6, comma 0. And then for point C, if we start at 3, comma 1, and we go left 8 again, and up 1, our point would be here. And the coordinates of that point would be negative 5, comma 2. So as you can see, your picture would get very messy if you're continually drawing on it and then erasing it. So instead of counting, instead of plotting and counting, we can use subtraction instead. So we can add or subtract the left or right movement from the x value and then for y we can do the same thing. We can add or subtract the up or down movement from the y value. So if we look at our examples here, okay, for B, if we would have done 2 and left 8 was minus 8, that gives us negative 6. And then for the y coordinate, We could do -2 because it's the y-coordinate we were given, plus 2, and we get 0, which is what we get when we counted. So you might say, well, how do you know if you subtract or add? Well, if you're moving left, we're going to subtract, and if we're moving down, we're going to subtract. If we're moving right, we're going to add, and if we're moving up, we are going to add. So that is how you would know. On the next page, this is how we would write the translation rule. It says you can describe a translation by the notation x comma y, and that arrow means like you're transforming this, and we can add the a value to the x-coordinate and add the b value to the x-coordinate based on this picture here. So we are translated right a units and up b units according to the picture. And what we have written here is what we wrote on the previous page. How to add or subtract your translation value from your x and y coordinates. All right, in example 2, it says write the rule for translating right 3 and down 4. So we have x comma y, and then the arrow is going to be x plus 3, because it says right 3, comma y, and we're going to have, since it's down 4, -4. So that is our translation rule. Example 3 says, how would the notation change if you started at figure 2 and moved to figure 1? So up here, what if we started at figure 2 and we had to go down and left? So instead, that rule would be x comma y, and it'd be x minus a comma y minus b, because we're going down, so that'd be minus, and left, which would also be minus. Then example number 4 says, what is the image of w using this translation rule up here? So we would do 2, which is our x value, plus 3, because that's our rule, comma, y is 5, and our translation rule again is -4 for the y coordinate, and that gives us 5 comma 1. So for the first couple, I'm going to be writing this out just so you can see how it works, but after a while we can just add these in our head and write down the answer. Now, example B, you have to be careful with, because it says what is the pre-image. So we're given the final one, we're given r prime after we do this translation. So we have to go backwards. So when we go backwards, we kind of have to reverse the rule. So our point is -1, but instead of plus 3, we're going to subtract 3, comma. We have 7 as our y value, and instead of -4, we're going to add 4. And that will get us -4, comma, 11. And if you want to make sure that this is correct, perform the original translation. -4 plus 3 gives you -1. +11 minus 4 gives you +7. So now I am confident that I did this translation correctly to find the pre-image. And so in this example, we're going to graph this quadrilateral with these 4 points, and we're going to find the image after each vertex is translated using this rule, and then we're going to graph the translated figure. So 0, comma, -2, that's K. 4, comma, 3 is L. M is 5, comma, 2. And N is 6, comma, -1. So this is our quadrilateral. So for point K, we're going to subtract 4 and add 2. So the x-coordinate, 0 minus 4, will give us -4. And then the y-coordinate is -2, so -2 plus 2 is 0. So K prime is at -4, comma, 0. In example number 5, it's asking us to graph the quadrilateral with these 4 vertices. And then we're going to find the image of each vertex after this translation, and then graph the image using prime notation. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to graph these original points. So K is 0, comma, -2. So here's K. L is 4, comma, 3. M is 5, comma, 2. And N is 6, comma, -1. Now we're going to find our points using this translation rule. Now if you just want to count first and then write the points afterwards, that's fine. Or you can do the algebra here and calculate the correct point. So K was 0, comma, -2. So the translation rule says take the x-coordinate and subtract 4, so we have -4. And then take the y-coordinate and add 2, so we have -2 plus 2, which is 0. So K prime is right here. When you are graphing these, make sure you're plotting the point and labeling it correctly with the prime notation. Now for L, we can do the same thing. We're going to take the x-coordinate and subtract 4, so L prime is going to be 0, because 4 minus 4 is 0, comma, 3 plus 2 is 5. So we have 0, comma, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that is L prime. And I'm going to count this next one so that you can see how that's done. So negative x minus 4 means we're going to go left 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And y plus 2 means we're going to go up 2. And there's M prime. And the coordinates of that are 1, comma, 4. So you, like I said, you can do it either way. Just make sure you are writing down the point. And then for N prime is going to be 2, comma, positive 1. 2, comma, positive 1 right here. So here's N prime. And there's our translated figure. Now, if we look at this, the pre-image and the image are the exact same size. Everything is the same about them. So the size and shape are the same. And in geometry, we call that congruent. They are congruent. A fancy term for that is called a rigid transformation. A rigid transformation is a transformation that preserves its size and shape, and it's also called an isometry. Most of the transformations we're going to do are going to be rigid motions. There's going to be one that isn't because the size of the shape will change. Right, so I want you to pause a video and to try these problems out on your own. And then once you've finished, you can unpause the video and check your answers with mine. All right, so these are the answers that I got. And make sure that you are labeling the points as well over here and in your graph. Now, if you did this and your two triangles did not look the same, that's a clue that you've done something wrong. Then down here, the translation rule, x plus 5 comma y plus 3 is how you go from this image to this image. So my pre-image was on the left, my image was on the right with the prime notation. And here are the answers for the last ones down here. Remember that if it says what is the pre-image, we got to go backwards. So I did -4 minus 3 to get -7, and -1 plus 2 to get +1. All right, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe.